Live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the Lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the Lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey, good evening, everybody. It is Friday on the Lifeboat. Well, it's our Friday. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville on the other side of the glass. My partner, Mark Wages. Glad that you all joined us. Boy, oh boy, people. Last night was a good one, wasn't it? That show left me rocked for hours. You know, I had a really great conversation with my brother after the show was over, which was really cool. But yeah, that was just one of those things that, you know, as I said last night, didn't know that was coming. That was really sort of out of left field. But it was, yeah, I think it was a long time coming for all parties involved. And, you know, it's going to dovetail nicely into tonight's subject matter. It really is, because tonight we're going to talk about forgiveness, and the forgiveness comes in a lot of different flavors, right? But of all of the things that people email me about, this is the number one topic. When people ask, even if they're not asking, "Hey, I'd like to be able to see this," but if there's ever advice, the number one complaint of all of the people on the Lifeboat is that they have the inability to forgive themselves, and often the inability to forgive others as well. Kiss Freak, good to see you. But this is a subject that continues to come up. So this will be the definitive Lifeboat show on forgiveness. After this, we will never have to do another one. Eh? Yeah. We'll. This is one of those subjects that, you know, we're going to do every couple of weeks for as long as we're doing the Lifeboat, because it is one of the most important things that you know, that can happen to anybody in recovery. This is something that can cause people to stumble. And on the flip side of that, it can also set you free. So when you start talking about forgiveness, there's a whole bunch of cliches that everybody says all the time, right? Everybody is always telling you, boy, you have to forgive people, right? Doesn't matter what the person did to you. Well, you have to forgive them, right? No one ever really gets into the whys of why you have to forgive somebody. You'll hear the next cliche will be what? Well, forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. When you forgive somebody, you're really letting go yourself. It's not the other person. And there's a lot of truth to that. There really is. But one of the things that really strikes you when you start to, if you do any kind of research, start reading all of the different places in literature where forgiveness is talked about. Shakespeare talked about it a lot. The Bible talked about it a lot. There are recurring themes that just continue to pop up time and time again. And people, one of the most amazing things about forgiveness or lack of forgiveness is that when you don't forgive somebody, when you carry a grudge and you uh, walk around with that hate, right, or that resentment or whatever, um, what you're doing is tying yourself to that individual for as long as I mean, very often for your entire life. There's a cable that gets run between you and that person that never goes away. There's a lot of cliches too about how, boy, love is really close to hate. And you know why people say that, right? Because there are two emotions that mirror each other. When you hate somebody, it's irrational. And in the beginning, love can be too, right? You sit and you think about a person all day long. You can't get them out of your head, right? I could be describing either one right now, couldn't I? That could be love, that could be hate. But either way, it is an emotion that is fraught with with that kind of visceral feelings, and it's the kind that tie you to an individual. Very often, people who get divorced, can spend the next 10 years of their life married to to their ex by their hate. If you do not have the ability to forgive somebody, that forgiveness is cutting the cable between you and the person that you need to forgive, and that's massive because truthfully, until that cable is cut, very, very often, it is truthfully impossible to move on. So let's use divorce again as an example. Everybody knows, at least somewhat, everybody has a pretty good handle on my last relationship and the fact that while I was incarcerated, my ex-wife took up with another guy, stole my identity. I did a lot of really sort of awful things, and then sent me the Dear Tommy letter um, while I was incarcerated. But there is nothing in the world I want more than to unload her. It may sound really cold-hearted, but it's the truth. And when this first happened, I thought about her every single day. It was something that I could not get out of my mind. I would think about the things that I was going to say the next time I saw her. I had all of these great speeches, worked up. I had 45 minutes to an hour of things that I was going to say to her as soon as I saw her. Like I was just going to steamroll this woman with all of these really important things. And truthfully, most of them were just filled with venom and were, hateful. Uh, but there's so much truth to what forgiveness does. Now I have nothing but pity for this girl, truthfully. And it also gives you that huge dose of the P word, right? Perspective. When you truthfully forgive somebody and you realize there's a huge difference between real forgiveness and not real forgiveness, right? Because very often we give things lip service. And why? Well, because every single person you talk to says, well, you got to forgive them, right? Well, you have to do that. It's for you. And they just continue to do it. Don't tell somebody you forgive them until you do. Even if it's something where you're not going to say it to the person, you're going to say it to yourself. Really work on real forgiveness. Because when that happens, people, it's like taking a backpack full of weight off of your body. It's like disconnecting a cable that literally has you tied to that individual. And it's funny because there are a lot of people out there that dislike people, and then go out of their way to do everything possible to really, I don't know, offend the person, right? Get in the person's face, do whatever. But all they're doing is tying themselves to that individual for eternity.
Yep.
There is so much fun to going like this. Yeah, done, right? Haven't given that a thought in how long. But so often, when I was really in the mix with my ex, if you brought up her name, it was never something that where a person could just think about her. It was always going to have to be her and the fact that I hated her that bad. Like, honestly, other people couldn't even think about this woman without me being tied up to her through my inability to forgive. And, when I started the Lifeboat, I came and talked to you guys about this. We did a couple of shows. It would have been about last October, I think. And I said I was going to take the month of November to try and forgive. You can go back and listen. That really happened. And I got a lot of really great advice from a lot of people on the boat. And that's really when it started, honestly. Up to that point, I wasn't free. I was out of prison, right? I was into the real world, but I still had this anchor, that was keeping me from being happy. And imagine trying to move forward, people. Let's say again, using the same example, how are you going to have a relationship with anybody? Seriously, because the love you should be giving to somebody else, well, all of that emotion is tied up in hate for your ex. It's not something you can do both at the same time with any kind of success. Now, the reason that, and I understand that today is about forgiving yourself, but you realize how and why it is so important to talk about what forgiveness means to others. And hey, Aaron Jones, good to see you. Um, if you don't understand forgiveness in its base form, then forgiving yourself becomes a very difficult thing to do. But you understand it's no different. So if you're beating yourself up for the things that you did when you were on drugs, you're really not getting over the addiction. Do you understand what a big deal that is? I'm going to say that one more time, just in case one of you happened to be, crunching a bag of Doritos and didn't hear that. No, but seriously,
Yeah.
this is something that is going to keep you absolutely tied up to your addiction. You can't move on and develop a new identity if you can't forgive yourself for the last.
Yep.
It's impossible because you're going to be spending so much time wallowing in self pity. I'm sorry, that's really what it is. The inability to forgive ourselves makes us pity ourselves. Sad but true.
Gives us
And
excuses. But
absolutely, it does.
yep, it most certainly does do all that, guys. And it's a great point. And the thing is, and another thing I would say, you know, he's the what he's talking about here is the biggest thing that you have to forgive. He's not talking about the little, nuances of what's inside of each thing that we've done wrong, right? Those things are always going to creep up in your mind, but we can't even attempt to combat those unless we do what he's saying right now. It is, yeah, forgiveness is a huge thing, and you gotta do the big stuff first. Have to. So, but yeah,
Yeah, and you're right on every single point. Uh, and one of the, as I said, I get emails about this every single day, sometimes 5 and 6 of them a day, that says, "But you don't understand the things that I've done." Right? It's all great, and everything that you say is true, but you just don't know what I've done. Um, People, the act of forgiving oneself, it really doesn't change much, right? Whether your sin is this big or it's 5 times that size, the act itself is, hey, Rip Curl, good to see you. It's one of those things that once you get the concept down, it doesn't matter how big what you did was or how awful you think you were. Truthfully, you're concentrating on that. How many times have we said that once you get sober, you truthfully are a new creation, right? Absolutely, 100% a new creation. You're changing yourself into the person you want to be. As I've said so many times, right? The way I did it was 3 simple pages, right? And that third page was writing out exactly who I wanted to be. No chance I become that person if I'm tying myself to page 2.
yeah,
You understand? It's like having a ball and chain to the person I used to be. There is absolutely a very legitimate point to be made that when you are, depression is anger turned inwards, I believe. And then when I drink, oh boy, the anger floodgates open. I'm really glad. That's a great comment, and I'll tell
yes,
you why. And I'll tell you why I read it as well. The very often the inability to forgive yourself, or depression, all of them, but we fuel those with our drug use. As my partner said earlier, wisely, this becomes a very good excuse, doesn't it? Right? It gives us, honestly, it gives us an excuse. I literally wasted at least 1 year of my life after I knew it was time, right? At the bitter end, I was in prison knowing I had to stop because using in there is just a way to die. It's the most dangerous environment in the entire world. And that was my go to. My go to was, you don't understand, right? this is the only way I can cope. I can't forgive myself for the things that I've done. And whether you're forgiving yourself, um, whether you're forgiving somebody else, don't tie yourself to any lead weight. Don't carry around a burden that you don't need to. As you start to get deeper into sobriety, one of the things that I find really works for me is I keep really short accounts with myself. You know what I mean by that? So at the end of every day, I told you, you sit down and you go through the day. Now, in a perfect world, you journal. If you're not into that, don't sweat it, right? But sit down and go through the day that you had, because that's huge. And you're going to come across something and you're going to go, you know what? When Mark and I were talking, I was having a bad day and I kind of crapped all over him. And you know what? I feel bad. And I'm going to reach out and I'm going to say sorry to him so that in the same time, I can basically start working on forgiving myself for whatever it is I did that day. Short accounts really go an awful long way. Ryan, 888. It was definitely my excuse. I can't believe I did all of that stuff drunk. So I'll just get drunk again and do some more things I'll regret.
On point.
People, on point. I mean, I'm telling you, it makes so much sense. And it sounds funny, right? There are certain things that when people say, it's funny, but it does make so much sense. I love this boat too. Thank you, Brandon. I love this boat and everybody on it. There was another one that people laugh at, but it truthfully was I had friends that used to say, I do a shot of heroin and I'm a new man. The trouble is that new man wants to do a shot of heroin. And, it sounds funny. The first time you hear it, it really is kind of humorous, but that is exactly what's going on. For me, opiates took away the regret and the shame and all of the things that were associated with the fact that I was addicted to a substance that I had to go out and steal for and stick needles in my arms. So I would get high and I would feel like, for a couple of hours, I didn't think about any of those things. And then as it started to peak off, the first thing that would come before the sickness, before any of it, would be the guilt. And you know what? I'm not trying to, to sit here and brag about but the physical end of it, honestly, people, that was never the problem for me. In withdrawal, I mean, I spent so much of my life in withdrawal that I promise you that the physical part sucks. I'm not saying it was pleasant. I absolutely hated it, but I was a guy that could get up and go out and work if I had to, or steal, or do whatever while I was dope sick. It was something that I got very, very good at. What I could not cope with was the guilt. That was the anchor. And
we almost we almost kind of like have to try to forgive ourselves for even having that thought. It's a vicious circle, and
it is a vicious circle.
It just keeps coming back on you guys. It really does.
I hit my rock bottom Sunday. Hold on one second. I walked a couple of miles after work tonight, as exhausted as I was, but I think if I keep, I'm gonna get back to working out and jogging. You hit your rock bottom on Sunday. You know something, guy, as bad as that is, there's something really liberating in hitting rock bottom, right? That moment where you go, you know what, it probably can't get any worse than this. That's, the greatest position to be in if you really want to turn your life around. That's, I just bottomed out. I got nowhere to go but up. Yep. I've told the story before. I had just gotten stabbed in the stomach. I had been thrown on solitary confinement. They wouldn't even allow orderlies to walk by the cell. So there was no way to get any dope. I was in full-blown withdrawal. I had just gotten stabbed and airlifted off out of the prison, at which time I got the, hey, I want a divorce letter. And I remember sitting in there and going, yeah, I don't see it as it could get any worse than this. Lord Kissfreak, thank you for my Vegemite. Do you have any idea how big my Vegemite fund is getting? Yeah,
we're going to buy stock in it, man. Telling you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're all really, really twisted individuals. It wasn't enough that I ate that foul fish. You want me to now do Vegemite as well? It just doesn't seem fair.
I do want to point out the guy was talking about also how he says he's going to quit smoking after the pack he's got right now. I think that's a, listen, when you're going through stuff like that, don't just let it sit in your head. Even if you're sitting in a room by yourself, verbalize it.
Right.
Let
Yeah.
yourself
Say that out loud. Go
let,
look at yourself in the mirror.
yeah, let yourself hear it, guys. Okay? And that goes for the good things too. Look at yourself in the mirror like Tommy has talked before. I forgive you. Don't say, I need to I forgive myself. I forgive my don't. No. Look in the mirror and say, I forgive you. I forgive you. Don't don't let there be a bridge there. Just take that down and go for it.
And I know people, listen, I am of the generation of Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live, right? I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me, right? I was absolutely that was my generation, and I felt ridiculous. But I wanted so badly for the guilt to go away. That was for me. I wanted more than anything for the guilt to stop. And I had watched Q help people. I really had watched him, turn lives around where I would look and go, what the hell happened to so-and-so? And guys used to say it honestly, like it was brainwashing and a bad thing. Like, yeah, he got the Q treatment kind of thing. And I remember thinking, I want that treatment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But when he would say to me, you need to go do daily affirmations. I remember giggling the first time and he said, yeah, because everything you've been doing up to this point's been working so well, right? You want to stick with what you've been doing because you're killing it, aren't you? Yeah? How long have you stayed sober? I mean, Q had a way of sort of making you feel like an idiot when you were being an idiot, which was, a pretty good thing for me because I spent a decent amount of time being an idiot at that point. When I was putting together this for today, and, I was talking about and thinking about forgiveness and running through all of this, I got emails from about 3 of you that said, were you able to forgive your brother now that he has come out and told the world? I guess the assumption being that since he didn't admit this for a period of time, sort of, I was the dirtbag of the family, was I walking around with hatred or animosity or whatever? And the truth of the matter is I was not. And that is from the heart. I'd be lying to you if I said that last night wasn't really, really cool for me. It was a really, really cool thing. But when I was getting sober, that was something that I dealt with, worked through. If there was forgiveness for anybody, people, I promise you it's the truth. And when I was done, there was just 2 people I couldn't forget. I came here and I talked about it. If you go back and do deep dives, I think it was right at the beginning of November, I said, this is going to be the month. It was either October or November of last year, where I said, that's my goal. But my goal for this month is to just, get through this. Very often, back to the ex-wives or whatever, you stop hating the person. You understand? I no longer hated my wife. The thing that I hated was 600 pounds, blew fire out of its mouth, was just the most evil creature in the world. It was a succubus and a devil and all of these things wrapped into one. And I gave her power beyond anything that anyone on this planet has. Truthfully, I gave her the ability to make it so I couldn't sleep. I gave her the ability to make it so I couldn't eat, right? If she wanted to, all she had to do was really hammer that memory home. I could sit and start thinking about I knew the guy she took up with. I knew that guy. And I would sit and start doing this one. You hungry? No, I'm just going to not eat tonight. Right? How much power did I give over to someone who I promise you had probably moved on already, didn't care about me in the first place? But the liberation of killing that beast, and a really unusual thing happens, right? Once you slay that, that dragon, something really unusual happens. When they become a human being again, when they're no longer this massive fire-breathing org or whatever you have created in your head, you're going to find compassion in places that you didn't know existed. If you had talked to me in August of last year and said, anything that happened in that divorce, your fault? No, nothing that happened in that is my fault, right? No, she took up with another guy. How is that my fault? I was in jail, right, for gun running when she did it. But this is the mindset of hate, right? Exactly. This is the mindset of the inability to forgive. let's not forget the technical Tommy education. You know what? Probably more important than the Vegemite. Thank you, Seven
let
Son.
me let me
Yeah, the big fingers.
let me read a comment here real quick from Heather.
Okay.
It says understanding that relapse was part of addiction helped me so much. Keep trying, never give up. And you know, guys, we've said that so many times, right? You know, here we never quit quitting. That's what that is.
Correct.
And I think that this bridges to that like directly, if it ain't just part of the core. You know, you can't keep quitting if you can't forgive. You can't.
It's going to drive you back. It really does become this monster. You know, as I said, and it's really easy to hate a monster that's bigger than life. But once I shrunk her back down to a 5'7" tall, 130-pound girl, right, whose career got destroyed because she married a guy who was a bank robber, all of a sudden, that perspective thing really sort of swept in. So when I said at the beginning of this that I have nothing, the only emotion I have now is pity. I don't mean I'm pitying her like, no, I mean legit. Like I feel my responsibility in this. I've forgiven myself for that, but I'm not going to BS myself either. My brother came on last night and laid his soul bare. I guarantee you he can begin to forgive himself for whatever he was piling on. And he was really open about that feeling.
That is the first step, isn't it? I mean,
Absolutely. Now, people, if you're sitting out there and you're listening to me and you're thinking, well, you don't know the thing that I did, and I can't go back to that person and apologize. You just do not understand. There are plenty of opportunities, right, in life where literally the situation makes it so you cannot apologize to that person. That's legit. So I guess you're screwed, right? Rest of your life, man, it's over. Cash it in. No, what you're going to do is you're going to get a surrogate for real. You get a surrogate. You go and talk to somebody and say, hey, Mark, listen, I got to get this off my chest. You know, I didn't do this to you. I did it to somebody else, but I got to get this off my chest. And if I don't tell someone else about this, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to take this backpack, off of my back and fling it.
yes.
And I have been in that situation. You know, when you're in prison and you're trying to work through these things, none of the people I wanted to apologize to, you write them a letter. It's a very difficult, for me. No, I really needed to talk to somebody. I really needed to say out loud the things that I had done. One of the reasons that I started a sobriety group in prison, and I'll be completely honest, was all about me. I needed a group of people that could listen to the things that I had done so that I could work through them and move on. You know, I had Q telling me, no, you definitely have to tell other people about what you've done.
Yeah.
I feel if you really want to get sober, you get sober. Absolutely. You will.
Yeah.
And I have actually said this before. The reason that you go through AA or NA or a structured program or some place where other addicts can help you along the way. Yeah, you'll absolutely make it, but it might take you 2 or 3 years, right? The road is going to be a much more difficult one to walk if you try to do it alone. Really. I mean, that's been documented. It's one of those things that really, really can slow you up.
Love you, Kiss. Glad you're here, man. Have a good night, bud. Thanks for stopping in. Appreciate you, bud. For real. You don't know how much.
Yeah.
And let me I want to say something too about something you just said that actually just kind of hit me. I've not used the word that you used, and it's an awesome way to say it. He used the word surrogate. Okay. Yeah. You know, if you're a Christian, or if you're into spirituality and stuff like that of any sort, you've probably heard the word intercessor, right? And then being just standing in for somebody. That's kind of what he's talking about, I think. I really do. I think that's something that, if you need to voice it, go use somebody as a surrogate for you. They're going to listen. We're here to listen. We'll be that surrogate for you if that's
Amen.
what it takes. Or even if it ain't what it takes, if it's just something you want to do to make your life better.
Well, and often it is what it takes. You know what I mean? Like we've talked about, what if the person you need to apologize to has already passed away? right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are tons of things that I need to apologize to my dad for, and he's no longer here. I still apologize to him, right?
Right.
And if there's not a surrogate handy, I come here a lot and talk about the things that I did. But if that doesn't get it done, then I'll write him a letter.
Yeah.
And yeah, writing a letter to someone who's no longer alive may sound silly to you. A lot of what we do sounds silly until you start doing it and realizing the power behind all of it. There was a comment earlier from Ryan that I think is awesome. Ryan 4888888 said, he was talking when I said that I had built my ex-wife into this huge, massive thing that was so much bigger than a human being, had so much more power. He said, that's what they say. You suffer more in imagination than you do in reality. And I think that that is just an amazing comment because it is the absolute fact. How many times have we talked about, we as addicts, we build things in our heads so much bigger than they actually are. If I don't get this, I'm going to die. If I don't get this, it's always the worst case scenario. I get a letter from the Department of Probation that wants me to go down there. Man, they're going to revoke my stuff. They're going to send me back to prison because our go-to is what is the worst thing that could possibly happen, because very often as addicts, that's what we learn to expect. But it's just like Ryan says, you're going to suffer more in your imagination than you are in reality.
That's such a great thing.
It really is. Just take all of the power out of that person by forgiving them. And you know what? If it's an entity, right? I mean, it can be an entity. If this is a true story, people. This is a true story. I was in prison and I was already getting sober.
Johnny, we got you here too, just so you know. Sorry, he's in the room. So.
No problem.
Okay, excellent.
No problem.
I was in prison and I had been sober a little over a year, and we went in to take a random drug test, which they did all the time. I was on the hot list because if your drug of choice had been heroin, they're going to test you all the time. So I went in, I peed in a cup. The guy pulled the strip on it, and he said, "You're good," right? I said, "Okay," and he threw the cup in the trash. He did this with 4 other people, and then we walked out. 2 weeks later, they come and get me. And they want to take me to the shoe. And I said, I passed that. He goes, yeah, you passed it on the cup, but we mailed all of those off to test. I said, how do you know which cup was mine? Like, you threw 4 cups into a trash can. And I said, look, I'm not doing this. And the crazy thing is, there was an inmate there that said, like just a stand-up cat, that said, I'll tell you the 3 substances that he would have failed for because it was me. I could tell you exactly what was on that because it was me. And regardless, it cost me another 60 days in prison. And without that 60 days, I would have seen my dad. Right? I mean, in the flesh, I would have hung out with my dad before he died. But for those 60 days. And there was a time that I wanted so badly, to just do something awful, right? To get back at, right? The people that did this massive injustice to me. And the truth of the matter is, once again, right? The perspective dose, hey, you know what? I shouldn't have been on the hot list.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have. I should never have been on the hot list. I shouldn't have been doing dope in prison in the first place 2 years earlier, right? And keep taking that back to its ultimate conclusion. What the hell was I doing in prison?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Look, I robbed banks, people. I went to prison, got out and committed more crimes. That's why I'm divorced. So as you start going back further, it's very easy to look for a scapegoat, to look for something that you can make a straw man and pour all of your hate onto. Because if you do, and if you do it right, you'll never have to look at yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, you'll never have to even glance in your own direction.
And I would even say this, guys. I've been in recovery for over 11 years, and just like case in point tonight, I'd never heard that word surrogate used in that way when we're talking about addiction. I'm still learning all the time. I continue to do so. But something that I've actually learned is that when you're talking about forgiveness and who you need to forgive and how you need to go about doing this, what you're going to find, I think, for most people is the person that you need to forgive the most is yourself.
Absolutely.
The people out there that have done you wrong, and you think that they have done you wrong, you're going to be able to let that go pretty easy probably. But when you know that you could have controlled how you've done things and you didn't, that makes it so much harder for you to forgive that. And and you're looking at yourself when you're doing that. So,
well, and one of the reasons that it's so important to, and the reason that self-forgiveness is very often more important than forgiving other people is because, there's a lot that goes on in our mind, right? That just parks itself in our subconscious, right? But the truth of the matter is, when we do make that straw man, when we lock on to one thing that we are going to make this is the linchpin in my life. Everything went wrong because of this, right? Well, we're off the hook, aren't we? So the reason that we do that so often, the reason that there's somebody out there that we just hate more than anything on the planet is because it's so much easier than really taking a look at what the hell we've done with our life. Yeah. How we got to where we're at this moment. It's so much easier if I can just have somebody to hate, if I could just have somebody to blame this on, right? So once you start to forgive yourself, which does require you really looking at the things that need forgiveness. And when you work through that and you look in the mirror and you say, you know what, man, you did this stuff on dope, right? Like, I'm not giving you an out, but for God's sakes, we weren't making good decisions. I forgive you. 100%. It's amazing how fast you no longer hate that person. It's amazing how fast that wasn't really what destroyed your entire life, right? That wasn't the linchpin that sent you down this road. It was something else that did, and that reality would really be something that sets you free.
So yeah, I mean, and Johnny, we'd love to hear your opinion on this, because this is something that I think you would have a lot of insight on. I really do.
All right, especially after last night. I'm glad you called in.
Yeah, yeah, for real.
Thank you. You know what? It's interesting. I can't think of a person I hold a grudge against. I don't have a beef with anybody, but I'm terrible. I'm not really realizing it until watching this. I'm not good at forgiving myself. Yeah. I'm really not. I'm just being honest with you.
Yeah. I think we see that a lot, guys, and I think it, being able to see it like maybe he's seeing it now, it's just huge.
I really don't have a problem forgiving others, though. I swear to you, I'm not even just saying.
Well, how about after last night?
I wonder if other people experienced it.
How about after last night's show? I mean, there was obviously, as you said last night, one of the reasons you sort of came out of the closet last night about drug use and some other stuff is because of guilt that had been building up, right? You talked about, how much guilt you felt. Do you feel like it's gone? Do you feel like there's a weight off your chest?
Oh, there is on that for sure. Yeah. I guess there's just a lot of stuff I got to forgive myself about. But that was we talked afterwards. It was relieving. I felt, listen, that I could have gone the rest of my life and nobody knowing, and I would have been fine. I felt really horrible. I felt like I was hanging you out to dry. Like, here you are, like, just being like a paragon of transparency and to see you do that, and like every time I'd watch your show, I watch it all the time. I swell with pride, but at the same time, I'd feel more guilt about watching you just take the heat. Not the heat, it's a beautiful thing to come clean. And listen, we talk about forgiveness. It's like, I know it's not a religious show, and I'm not going to go there, but the whole foundation of what I believe is that I am forgiven. I've been forgiven. So if somebody that created me can forgive me, how dare I not be able to forgive me? That's
a great point, Johnny. God.
Yeah, for those who are believers,
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
And I think that's a huge thing. It's people so often, the thing that I think we all lose sight of is you are not your brain, right? You are not your brain. You're really not. The brain has a whole bunch of responsibilities, and it doesn't always have your best interest at heart. Truthfully, it doesn't. And it does.
I think a lot of times.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think a lot of times if you aren't aware, your brain can be, it can be your enemy. I mean, straight up.
Well, it is.
No two ways about it. For a long time, for a long time until I got up, when you're using, your brain is your enemy. That's just the way it is.
Your brain's job honestly, your brain's job is to make things as easy as possible on the host. That's really what your brain seeks to do at all times.
Yeah.
So if it starts to think, boy, you know what? Every time he starts trying to think about the ex, this is just really horrible. It's going to start playing with your subconscious. It's going to start doing all kinds of stuff. You give your brain the ability to slap the crap out of you when you're sleeping, when you're not thinking. I mean, when you hold on to a grudge, or when you make this straw man, when you have somebody that you're blaming everything in your life on, your brain is going to do things to try to save you from that hate, because that's really its job. It's always looking for the path of least resistance to make it so that you don't suffer, right? Which is why it loves to have you drink or do dope.
And that's the whole reason why your brain releases dopamine. I mean,
absolutely.
And it's giving you, it's responding to you, what you've done, and whether it's physical or mental. And like we talked about before, your brain can release dopamine on a mental level, not a physical. When you go take a drug, that's a physical thing that happens in your body. It's forcing your brain to do that. But when you do it the correct way, and you get a dopamine release from, like I'm sure that Johnny got a dopamine, and I know Tommy did last night, a dopamine release from just hearing what was being said. I mean, that's just your brain's, and dopamine ain't the only thing going on there, but yeah. Go ahead.
I have to tell you, not only is that accurate, Mark, but let me be honest. What I did today, I was at work and I had some time, and I sat down and I watched, because last night when I was talking, I pace when I talk. I'm a pacer. I can't sit still. So I wasn't sitting in front of my laptop watching the show. And I heard afterwards about how he had the kind of a dumbfounded look on his face. So I went back today and I watched it. And I got that dopamine. It's just the same thing again today. And it was even better because I got a chance to see, it was better. It was kind of like completed it.
It's an awesome thing, because you've seen how it affected him in a positive way. Even though he was dumbfounded that had just happened, I think you probably knew that there was some healing immediately right there when you said that. And it's kind of what, your brain probably picked up on that, just dumped it for you, man. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It really is. It's an awesome thing. That's what we call real high, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The stuff,
there's nothing fake about that.
Yeah, the stuff we do with
medication. And it was beautiful to me. I mean, it was a good thing. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So do you remember the show? You remember the show that we did talking about the striatum, the part of your brain that says, okay, if 1 + 1 equals, right? If this happens and this happens, I do this, right? He's stressed out about the ex-wife. Let's get high. Because now I can shut down that part of his brain, right? The easiest way to make him just forget about this is to do dope. So do you understand how holding on to anything from your past is telling that striatum part of your brain? That's the voices when you say, I'm sitting alone at the house and all of a sudden I can't stop thinking about dope. I start, I get that feeling, and yeah, because you've got issues you haven't worked through, and your brain is saying, wow, anytime an issue came up, he sticks a needle in his arm. So let's just keep reminding him to put a needle in his arm. People, it really is, how this works. Why do you have to work through the things in your past? Why is it so damn important to forgive yourself? Because if not, you're carrying your drug addiction around with you after you beat it. Yeah, I got that done, but I got it in the backpack.
Wow.
I'm just going to tug this around for the next 25 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah. Right? I mean.
Wow, that's heavy. That's heavy. Matt, you do all the work and you don't use it anymore. Get rid of it all.
Yeah.
And not to change channels. I don't want to change channels. I got to tell you something. One thing that's been profound for me this week was I always just associated relapse as you're using whatever drug you had stopped using. So if you quit using weed, it wasn't really a relapse unless you were smoking a doobie or something.
Right.
And it was, to me, it's a revelation to know that that's not at all like relapse. And the beautiful thing about that is becoming aware of that is so empowering. I think it would give you a greater chance of ever preventing using again. once you recognize some signs and some behavior that you're in relapse, it's time to modify it quickly, change your behavior so that you're not. So, but if you aren't aware of the fact that that's part of relapse, I don't think you can put the brakes on and change course.
It's another perfect example of why this is the gold standard, right? Of why it's so much more important to learn from other people that have already done it. I assure you people that I didn't sit down and think, you know what? There's probably some stages to this relapse thing, right? Like that's not something I came up with, obviously. People far smarter than me have put this stuff together. It's just that Mark and I go out and try to bring it all together, especially the stuff that works for us, but much smarter minds. And that's why this works. Every time, somebody comes up with something within the field, right, or the discipline of sobriety, then everybody adopts it, and everybody gets just a little bit stronger, and everybody gets, that path becomes easier to follow. The more that you can steal from great minds, and we absolutely steal from a lot of great minds.
Zen Wen makes a really good comment here, and I just think it's so awesome. She says, wow, thank you. I just realized why I was tempted today for the first time in years. It was so obvious, but it took until you just said that to make me realize what's going on. So, listen, guys, this is why we talk about stuff. This is why you talk to yourself even in the mirror. Sometimes you're thinking and feeling things, and until you hear it audibly with your ears, you don't really realize it. But that's really what you need to hear or do. And I know it sounds ridiculous. I get it. I know it sounds kind of even at some level embarrassing that you're going to go talk to the mirror. But you can't let that stop you. You can't.
No, because
I used to do that. I swear to you, I used to do that. Years ago, I had a boss that instilled that in us. But one other thing, I still do. The fabric, really, there's a lot of things that you said. Everything you said makes sense. But to me, the fabric is, I've heard you say it before, but when you're truly invested in somebody else's recovery, this whole boat is like a network of people that are all invested. There are people here that have food, that's whether it's pornography or meth or booze or it doesn't make any difference. It's all the same. It's exactly. If you're invested, because the addiction, the part of your brain that wants to get fed doesn't care what's feeding it as long as it gets what it wants. Correct. So as long as everybody's concerned about and invested, personally invested, and that's why everybody comes to this boat every night. That's why it's important. That's why when you take the day off, I notice it.
It's funny.
It's true though. It really is.
And Zen Wen says there's something I'm still holding on to that I need to let go of. You know how huge that is, people? This is something that in the very beginning, for almost everybody, right? We don't think about issues. We don't think that there was something that was going on in my head, which is the reason that I got high. When we quit, it's just, man, I got to get through the next 24 hours without dope. If I can get through the next 24 hours. And then we put 6 of those together, right? And we got a week under our belt. But like the second season, right? We talked about this before we came back out. And the second season, we were hoping was going to be much more about the brain and much more about, what happens in sobriety, because, chemical free and sobriety are 2 different things.
Yes.
Right. And you got to be chemical free before you can work on anything in your life. But once you start to realize that, damn, so I wasn't just doing this because I liked getting high, right? This was really a coping mechanism there. And now that you start to figure out what those things are, people, when you can start to clear all of that stuff out, then, and there's no longer any straw men, there's no longer any excuses, there's no longer any of those things that you have been gripping onto, as the number one reason that you are here in life instead of way up there where you really wanted to be. Well, then you can start moving forward, and you can start moving forward on, nothing is too ambitious, honestly. I think I always bring up Alan Ballantyne, but it's just so amazing what that guy's been able to do. First he got chemical free, he had to knock out both of those drugs. And then he said, man, I'm unhealthy. Look at the size. Well, I'll just lose 1/3 of my body weight, and then he said, I think the way I interact with people at work is a problem. I'm just going to start changing this. And the guy is just, and the reason you're able to do that, the reason you can just keep setting one goal after another and knocking it down is because you're not carrying around a backpack, right, full of crap from your addiction. Right? Get rid of all of that stuff. Learn new coping skills. Have a group of people that have your back, right? That you can plug into.
Well, now that you say that, Patrick just made a comment, says, I've been using opiates for so long, I fear getting off, though. It is killing me. Getting off, even though it is killing me. He fears getting off of them. And I think that that's a very common thing that we all go through, any of us that have the opiate addiction. And I would even bridge that over to any other addiction. I think we all have that fear, no matter what we're doing there. And I would most definitely, we have to say this, and I know it sounds whatever, but talk to your doctor first and foremost. Always keep him in the mix, or her. Don't want to leave out the wrong gender there or anything. Yeah, but always do that. But listen, there's avenues, and you're looking at, we got about 40 people in here right now. There's 40 different streets you could go down. I mean, honestly, and this is just me being what it is. There's 40 people here that are going to be willing to help you walk through and talk to you and help you get through and maybe give you some good advice along the way. And at the very least, let you come to the right conclusion for yourself by simply letting you communicate it out of your own mouth. Because oftentimes that's how we get fixed.
So. Right. And as three cats that all of us, were addicted to opiates. Very good, Seven. All of us were addicted to opiates. Here's the thing, Patrick, and you know what? Patrick just recently reached out to me, and we've been sort of emailing back and forth. But the thing with opiates, I can sit down for 8 hours, right? And I can explain to you exactly how to go skydiving. I can tell you about a ram air parachute. It's got 7 cells. It's going to fill up with air. I can tell you that when you go the first time, they're going to give you targeted learning objectives, right? They're called TLOs. And you're going to go through, and here's what you need to do. And it's gas, brake, ground, altimeter. I'd go through all of these things. You're still going to have to jump out of that airplane. And the issues that we're talking about, and the backpack full of stuff, and the forgiveness and all of that, the first step, brother, as bad as it sucks, is 24 hours and then 48 hours. For you, it's going to be 5 to 6 days of vomiting and defecating on yourself, right? Not pleasant. It sucks. But on the other side of it's freedom. And, there's a lot of things you can do to offset that. And you know it, because if you've been doing dope as long as that, there are things that you can do out there, right? There are medical assisted treatments that can take the sting out of that, out of the whole kicking process. Really take the sting out of it, right? There's medical assisted treatment for the first 7 days. There are so many different options right now. And you're in a part of the country that really, really is a great place. Surrendering. Excellent, man, because that's what needs to happen. And I believe you. I really do. It's a terrible life. It is a terrible life. But I'm here to tell you that no matter how messed up it is, you can come back from it. Yes. I don't care how bad off it seems. You can come back from it. If the three of us right here, right now, can talk about this, and we're here, I am proof, bud.
You can't just come back. You can come back and find joy and live a fulfilled life and not have it on your shoulder. I remember, I swear to you, you've seen vampire movies where, dude checks out, stumbles through a village and finds this wagon and then ends up near a castle and ends up getting bit on the neck. And then in the morning, he's got to bite somebody. Right. Every morning he wakes up, he's got to go bite somebody. And to me, I remember thinking, I'm a vampire. And I remember that so clearly.
A lot of parallels. A lot of parallels. Lots of it. Can't stand light. We sleep all day. Come out at night. A lot of similarities.
And so, you live 2 lives. You work incredibly hard at not letting any of them overlap.
Yeah.
And then the whole time, you got to make sure you're not sick, and you got to make sure that you don't go to jail.
Yeah. And your salvation comes in a vein. It's really, there are definitely a whole lot of parallels to that. There's
I think we got a lot more here, especially here, a lot more crew members that we don't even consider or like in our face. Like for example here, we got Jackson here, by the way.
Wait for it. Good to see you, hey, Jackson.
Let me hide his video real quick. There we go. We got you now. But anyway, I do want to say, we get influenced by people that are actually watching the boat too. Like prior to the show, what happened, Tommy? Mama Scoville stuck her head in here. Remember?
Right.
What'd she say?
So she was. There is apparently they're talking right now about changing the law. So if you overdose on something like cocaine or heroin, it's an overdose. But if the overdose is from fentanyl, it's an instant murder charge. And they're very seriously trying to push this through. And with the number of people banging the drum, this is the kind of thing that will happen. And I can go two ways on this one. I really can, because there are going to be so many times where somebody says, "Oh, look at you! You look like crap. I could, here, I can give you 2 bags. It's all I got, but you could take it because I know you're sick." And then that guy goes and overdoses, and the person who was kind enough to try to help him gets a murder charge.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
The drug dealers, the guys that are really pushing this stuff, absolutely. Patrick says, "I love God and I love my daughter." You know what? Often that's all you need, bud. For real, that's a good enough base to start on right there.
Exactly.
It's
Hey guys,
honestly that's all I
Tommy,
have. Thank you, my
All right,
brother.
thanks, Johnny.
and let you finish out the show. Mark, you're a gentleman. You guys are great.
Love you, brother.
Stay sober, guys. Take care.
Yep, love you, brother. Hey, Jackson, what's up, buddy?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got
Yes.
you, Jackson. What's up?
I just want to let y'all know I love y'all so much. And I appreciate y'all. I just want to let you know it's been one day. I'm sober and everything. I've been doing no Delta 8 or nothing. I was doing some research on that, and the process that they use to make that, it's a little sketchy.
Uh,
Yeah.
So once I realized the process that they use to make it, I said, because I mean, I'm not condoning no type of drug use or nothing, but I do believe the cannabis is safer than that is, because at least it is grown that way. But the Delta 8, they actually got to use a chemical.
That's how they get around the law.
To convert it over the CBD to the Delta 8. So
Right.
that can't be safe.
Yeah, you're right. And for people that aren't tying things together here, guys, this is Flamin' Jackson from the chat.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just in case, so you guys put a voice with you seen his face earlier too. So anyway,
Well,
but
Jackson, you know what? We love you one way or the other, bud. We really do.
Yes.
And I think very often if those are decisions that you can come to on your own, people, make no mistake, we're never going to sit here and tell somebody, you need to stop this, you need to stop that. If you say I'm ready to stop, we'll help you all along the way, but we're never going to sort of
but he's bringing a good
is
point.
going into, you know what, Patrick? The second this show is over, bud, I'm going to reach out to you. The second this show is over. So just we'll talk about this. Yeah. Best case scenario, no question.
Yeah.
If you can go in and do detox in with a doctor, best case scenario, hands down. What they usually do is they use benzos to get you through the first 7 days where you're literally unconscious through the entire kick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's about the best way you could possibly do it.
Yep.
And it gives you a really good chance for success, providing you stick around.
Yep.
Right? You don't leave at that point. Yeah, you're gonna make it.
But Jackson, is talking about the Delta 8 thing, and Heather made a comment here. Delta 8 has its own kind of withdrawal. So I would ask Jackson, have you experienced anything different than anything else? I mean,
it really brings me down and everything. I noticed like the next day I'd be so drowsy and everything, sort of like a hangover or something. I could really tell a difference in my lungs and everything. I was mostly vaping and everything, but I could definitely tell a difference in my lungs and everything. The reason I started doing it is because I thought it was natural and everything. And they mislead people. They say, well, it comes from the hemp plant, but in reality, it's not really natural at all.
yeah.
And I've always supported cannabis for medicinal uses, but my problem is that I always went overboard on it. Once I got started, it's like I didn't know when to stop. I mean, if you can use it for medicinal reasons, just stop it. Just only use it for medicinal reasons. But
No, you're absolutely right.
I know how I abuse stuff.
Right.
Well, you know what? Pain pills, may be the greatest invention in history.
Yep.
If a guy's got a broken leg, or there's a horrible injury, they're the greatest things ever, but not for me. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Not for me. Can't have them in my life, but that
Well,
doesn't mean that they don't have a place.
What if you have
Well-
like appendicitis, guys, and fentanyl was never invented,
Yeah, I mean,
or
they're
any of
really-
any of that
do
stuff?
need-
Opium, even just opium at all. If we didn't recognize opium,
Yep.
listen, guys, that's what they use to put you out.
Mhm.
This is
I mean, it's
people,
very beneficial if used properly, but if abused, it could be a really big problem.
Yes.
Yes, no question.
Yes.
All right, can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
That is the top of the hour, people. This is also a watch that is celebrating somebody's recovery. Very cool watch. I'm pretty excited about that. Very, very cool watch.
Yes,
All right,
very
people.
cool.
Yeah,
Jackson,
very cool. Very cool.
thanks for coming in, buddy.
Jackson, we love you.
Oh,
buddy.
it was
And
an
I mean that.
honor.
Hey, man, you got good information there. Honestly,
Yeah,
I don't
thank
know.
you.
I don't know enough about Delta 8 myself. I know very little.
Yeah, I was misled myself and everything. I really was. And then after that other night when you said y'all didn't really know much about it, I started doing some more research myself. And after I did that research, I said, no, I'm not doing this no more. It ain't worth killing myself over.
Right. And that's what
No,
definitely everybody
not.
should do. You're the model right there, man.
Yeah,
You
good
don't.
call.
You got
Do your
you
research.
got to go do the research, guys. We got quite a few of the answers. We might even be part of your research, but
Yeah.
you got to keep moving. You can't stop with just us or with your best friend or whoever. But anyway, yeah, I know we're at the top. So
Yeah.
love you,
we
love you,
don't wanna go
Jackson.
too much
Hey,
longer.
Brandon. Hey,
Love you too.
Brandon, we'll get
God bless y'all.
you too, buddy. Well, we'll get you in next time, Brandon. Okay. Sorry, man. It's top of the hour.
Summer.
Yeah.
Summer, we're glad you're here. Alrighty, everybody. We this is the weekend here at the Lifeboat. So Mark and I will be back. We're gonna bring the cat. We will be back on Friday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Between now and then, reach out and try to save somebody. If you're carrying stuff around, dump it. Seriously, get rid of it. Forgive yourself. Reach out to anybody here on the boat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass.
Mark Wages.
And as promised, a cat in a basket.